So you want to get smart on something complex and fast. You're definitely in the right place.
Hope so.
Today, we're diving into market research in, well, emerging markets.
A really fascinating topic.
Yeah, and our main guide here is an article by Kalyani Raj over at Cognitive Market Research. Really good stuff.
Agreed. Laid things out very clearly.
Our mission basically is to pull out the key challenges, but also, the real opportunities for businesses trying to understand consumers
Yeah.
in these rapidly growing economies.
Kind of a shortcut through the noise.
Exactly. Your shortcut to being properly clued in.
Yeah.
And just to set the stage, McKinsey and Company reckons almost 70% of global GDP growth by 2030. It's going to come from these markets.
Wow. That's a huge number. It really underscores the importance.
Right. It's a massive shift. So you might have a pile of reading on this already. We're aiming to sort of distill it down.
Makes sense because the speed of change there, it's just incredible. Creates a really dynamic, sometimes unpredictable environment.
Okay, so let's jump into some of let's say, the trickier parts first. The article mentions infrastructure and tech constraints.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It feels a bit paradoxical, doesn't it? You hear about massive mobile phone growth.
Uh-huh. Penetration is soaring in many places.
But then, reliable internet, especially once you get outside the big cities, it can be, well, patchy at best.
Exactly. So you think, oh, great, online surveys, social media data. But if connectivity is iffy.
You're missing people. Big chunks of the population, potentially.
Precisely. And think about places like parts of Africa or Southeast Asia. So much still happens in informal, face-to-face markets.
Right. So your digital analytics, they only show you part of the story.
A very incomplete part sometimes. I remember seeing a study, I think it suggested over 60% of consumer goods sales in some sub-Saharan countries were still through those informal channels.
Wow. Okay, that really changes how you'd approach it. And it's not just the digital side, is it? Basic infrastructure can mess up traditional methods, too.
Absolutely. Poor roads make getting to remote areas for interviews tough.
Logistics nightmare.
Yeah, and unreliable electricity. That hits field work hard, too. Plus, you've got, the red tape, government rules, bureaucracy.
Slows everything down, adds cost.
Exactly. Adds layers of complexity.
Okay, so infrastructure is one major hurdle. What about data itself? Finding reliable, comprehensive data.
Yeah, that's often quite different from developed markets.
You can't just pull up neat data sets easily, right?
Not usually, no. The systems are often fragmented. Data might be outdated or just missing for certain areas or demographics.
Things like detailed income levels or purchasing patterns.
It'd be really hard to find consistently. Or competitor benchmarks. You often have to piece things together much more.
And the quality of what is there might be a bit questionable.
It can be, yeah. Inconsistent reporting, language issues creeping into the data, lack of digitization in some areas, it all impacts quality.
So that means you end up relying more heavily on primary research, doing your own surveys, focus groups.
Often, yes. It's more work, more resource intensive, definitely. But it lets you get the specific answers you need tailored to your questions.
Right. Okay, so infrastructure, data. Now, what about the people aspect, the cultural diversity, the languages? That feels like a minefield.
It absolutely can be if you're not careful. It's critical to get your head around the local culture.
How so?
Well, preferences, social norms, how people buy things, they can be deeply ingrained and very different from, say, North America or Europe.
So a marketing message that works great here might just
Bomb completely. Or worse, cause offense. Think about South Asia or Sub-Saharan Africa, incredibly diverse regions. You need real cultural sensitivity.
And the languages. You mentioned India earlier, over 20 official languages.
Yeah, staggering, isn't it? So you can't just translate a survey once and call it a day.
No way.
Everything needs careful adaptation. Questionnaires, discussion guides for focus groups. You need to consider dialects, local meanings.
Get that wrong and your results could be totally misleading.
Easily. Or you alienate the very consumers you're trying to understand. It's high stakes.
Okay, so lots of challenges, clearly. But the flip side is the opportunity, which the article also really stresses. The potential is just huge.
It really is. We're talking billions of potential consumers. And many have rising disposable incomes.
The expanding middle class phenomenon.
Exactly. And that drives demand for different kinds of things, more branded goods, different services. Preferences are shifting.
And good market research is key to spotting those trends early.
Absolutely. Identifying those high-growth segments, understanding what they want, that's where the advantage lies. Tailoring your offering.
Finding that unmet demand.
Yeah.
And what about the tech side? Again, the opportunities there. Smartphone use is climbing fast.
Yes. Despite the infrastructure issues we talked about, smartphone adoption in places like Brazil, Nigeria, Indonesia, it's really taking off.
So that does open up digital channels.
It creates a direct line to millions of consumers, many quite tech-savvy, studying their online behavior, how they engage. That's gold for refining digital strategies.
And this digital wave is also changing how research itself gets done, right? New methods emerging.
Definitely. It's not just surveys and focus groups anymore. We're seeing more mobile-based surveys, for instance.
Makes sense if people have phones.
Right. And AI analytics are getting better at crunching all sorts of data, even messy stuff. Social media listening gives you real-time sentiment.
Any specific examples?
Well, the article mentions using WhatsApp for surveys in India and Kenya, where maybe email isn't as common. That's quite innovative.
Using platforms people already use daily. Clever.
And think about fintech digital payments are booming in places like Mexico, South Africa. That generates loads of transactional data.
So you can see actual buying patterns.
At a really detailed level, these tools make data collection faster, more efficient, and give you insights almost instantly.
Okay, so to navigate all this, the challenges, the opportunities, it feels like local knowledge is absolutely essential. The article pushes partnerships with local research firms hard.
It's vital. Their understanding of the local context is invaluable.
What kind of context?
Cultural nuances, how markets really work on the ground, the specific regulations. Stuff an outsider might completely miss.
They stop you making obvious mistakes.
Or subtle ones. They can spot bias in how you phrase a question, for example, that you wouldn't see. They ensure the insights are genuinely actionable.
And it adds credibility too, presumably.
Huge credibility boost. People are generally more willing to talk openly to a familiar local organization, better data, higher participation.
Makes sense. And it's not just firms, right? Hiring local people, researchers, translators, moderators.
Also key. They bring that firsthand lived experience. A local moderator, for instance, can build rapport in a focus group much more easily.
Get people comfortable talking honestly.
Exactly. And they understand regional dialects, local slang, all the little things that minimize miscommunication and help you navigate unexpected issues during fieldwork.
It really hammers home that need for deep local immersion. Okay, before we wrap up, what about ethics? That's got to be a consideration everywhere, but maybe especially here.
It's definitely a big one. Data privacy is a global concern, and emerging markets are increasingly implementing their own regulations.
Like Brazil's LGPD or South Africa's POPIA.
Precisely. You absolutely have to comply. And beyond just compliance, it's about being transparent with participants.
Telling them how their data will be used.
Clearly and honestly. That builds trust, avoids legal problems down the line, and critically, fair compensation for people's time is essential.
Especially where economic disparities might be significant.
You have an ethical duty not to exploit vulnerable populations or use manipulative practices. It damages trust and ultimately your brand's reputation.
Good point. Okay, looking ahead briefly, future trends, how will tech continue to shape this?
Well, AI, big data, machine learning, they'll become even more important for making sense of all the complex, often unstructured data.
Like social media chatter or call center logs.
Exactly. Sentiment analysis tools, for example, getting better all the time for real-time monitoring. And as tech infrastructure improves overall,
It potentially reaches more people, even those previously hard-to-reach groups.
that's the hope, making research more inclusive.
But even with all that tech, that localization piece, it's not going away, is it?
No way. If anything, it becomes more important. You need to tailor everything, products, services, and the research methods themselves.
Like using gamified surveys, maybe? Or specific apps designed for those markets?
Yeah, things that boost engagement and accuracy within that specific cultural and technological context. It's about being smart and sensitive.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. Researching emerging markets. It's clearly got unique hurdles, infrastructure gaps, data challenges, those deep cultural nuances,
Not only complex,
but balanced by really significant opportunities. Huge untapped markets, growing digital access, and some really cool innovation and research techniques.
a really dynamic picture.
And threading through it all is that need for local expertise and doing things ethically.
Absolutely critical for success. Adaptability and cultural awareness are key. No one-size-fits-all approach works here.
Right. So maybe here's something to chew on. As tech evolves and markets get more connected, how might the insights we learn from emerging market consumers How could they actually teach us something about consumers back in, say, developed economies?
Interesting angle. Could shifts happening there be precursors to changes elsewhere?
Could be.
Yeah.
Might offer unexpected advantages even in markets you think you understand perfectly. Anyway, food for thought. And remember, a lot of this deep dive drew from that cognitive market research article by Kalyani Rajay. Worth checking out for more detail.